All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome back to the Tennessee Holler. I'm Justin. tnholler.com is where you can find us at the TN Holler, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all your favorite platforms. We also have all these hollers hollering all across the state thanks to your support. Before we get into what we're doing today, I want to send a quick shout out to Elisa Parker. If you're buying or selling in Middle Tennessee, do it through her. She's supportive of us. AJ Martin, if you need some jewelry, and if you need a lawyer, Abby Rubenfeld is who you should call. These are the people that support what we do, and you support what we do with your small dollar monthly donations. That all really helps. Make it a few bucks a month and get a sweet hat like the one I'm wearing. All right, let's get into it. Today we have a very special exclusive announcement. We don't often break news, but when we do, we make sure it's important one. And Kiran Sreepada is on here to break some news with us. Kiran, how are you doing today, man?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm good. So just for some background here, Kiran and I are not only neighbors, we're friends. We also both ran for Congress in the 7th district, which is what it was at the time. And now it's the 5th district we were carved into when Republicans racially gerrymandered Nashville into 3 separate districts. Andy Ogles is currently our congressman, and it was coming down to the wire here, and it looked like maybe nobody was going to run against him. Kiran, you threw your hat in the ring not too long ago. This was the headline on the lookout: Kiran Sreepada to run against Ogles in the 5th district. And then you weren't alone. There was someone else that got in also. Miriam Abel-Fazli is running for Congress. She founded Rise and Shine Tennessee. And Kiran, why don't you take it from there?
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting me come on to say this. We all, I think, know that Andy Ogles cannot be in Congress. Like, it's unacceptable, and he's just a terrible representative. And I probably assume that extends into his own personal life as well. But we had a race where we didn't have a Democrat, and a couple weeks ago, I confirmed that I was going to run. I was the first person to do that, and even until I submitted my petition on Tuesday, I believe, I was still the only one who had confirmed that I was going to be in this race. Um, I'm not going to LeBron James this and take a whole hour to do this, but basically, some things have happened, and I wanted to explain it. So please stay tuned for the entire explanation. That I am going to be withdrawing from this race. And the reason for this is twofold. One, I look at what we need to do in this race in order to win it. And we need to not only get behind and coalesce behind a candidate. Primaries are great. They make people better candidates. I think Justin, you and I have talked about this, and they're good for the process. But this is a race where almost everything needs to fall into place. And a contested primary puts us in a position where we lose out on a lot of the groundwork, whether it's fundraising or organizing or door knocking, until very late. We don't have primaries until August 1st, at least literally a month or two before you can really make an impact. And so I look at the candidates and I think I got into this race because I thought I could bring something to this race. I thought that I could be a good candidate. And I thought I'm fighting for the issues that are affecting all of us, especially I look at my children. They're really the reasons why I do most things. And now I see another candidate in the race who is also fighting for these things, and she's fighting for Miriam, who you mentioned earlier. She's fighting for common sense gun reform. She's fighting and experiences it much more personally than I do, the assault on women and fighting for reproductive rights in a state where we are now in. I could only assume a small minority, but you said earlier in one of your other interviews, we are the tip of the spear, and don't think for a second that Republicans around the country are not looking at these policies and saying, how can we do that? I feel that it's the most responsible thing electorally to get behind her, to make sure that she has all the supports that she needs in order to make this race successful. I think she's a great person. I think she's a good candidate. And I think in terms of when you're looking at, are you bringing something new? We're both fighting for the same things. And she, and perhaps feeling it a little more personally than I do as a woman, I think brings an added perspective here that could make the difference. But there's another bigger reason, and I've talked to you about this earlier or before. I have a 6-year-old daughter now. When I ran for Congress in 2020, my kids were very excited. Somebody told me I was the first Indian American on a federal ballot in November in Tennessee's history. And it not only mobilized the Indian community here, but it made them stay involved in the civic process. My kids obviously were very excited, and they saw somebody who looked like them, who was from their community, and they thought, wow, we can do this too. My daughter, about 2 years ago, this is shortly before Heidi Senator Campbell entered the race, said to me, after learning that Kamala Harris is half Indian, she said, "Oh, I can be vice president." And I looked at her and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, you can be whatever you want to be. You can be president. You can do whatever you want to do." And she followed it up by saying, "But I can't run for Congress." And I asked her why, and she said, "Because only her words, only mans run for Congress." And it occurred to me at that moment, like, not only is that probably true in the majority of races, but the ones that we did have it as an example were Marsha Blackburn and I believe Representative Harshberger, which to me are not good examples of what I would want to show my daughter. I look at this race now and I think we talk a lot as Democrats specifically, but I think especially as Democratic men about being supportive, about being allies, about working for a good cause. Mariam brings something to this race that I cannot, and I will never be able to. And that is the impact that she, as a candidate, fighting and being out there, potentially winning and being a representative, how that impacts my daughter in what she sees as possibilities and maybe other people out there and other daughters. That's very important to me. And it's very important for her to be able to see that there is a candidate out there who looks like her, who's fighting out and standing up for what's right, that she can do that as well. And she can go on and become a candidate, a representative, or as I said earlier, whatever she wants to do. I also have a son who's 9, and I cannot sit here and teach him that we need to be supportive and at the same time get into a race and say, oh yeah, there's somebody else who's running on a similar platform as me, but I'm going to make it so that my ego is going to get in the way of what I'm trying to teach him. And we need to check that ego at the door. At least I do. And so I'm not saying that me being in this race would have done anything to hinder or help Miriam. I'm not, arrogant enough to think that. What I am saying is that I think we need to get behind these ideas and we need to do what's right for ourselves, for me right now, and for what I see in my children, and walk the walk. We cannot just talk the talk. And this year is a moment where we can see a lot of women who are running, and we need to be supportive of that. Number one, but also we need to understand that that is a perspective that they're bringing to this and all the issues that are on the table this year. That is more than we can do, or maybe I should speak for myself, but more than I can do, and that makes a stronger candidate. That makes someone who we should get behind and someone who we should really, really be supporting. I'm not dropping out of the political process here in Tennessee at all. In fact, I feel that my role, based on my own political and policy experience, is to help strengthen the infrastructure we've got. And if I'm not running, that's okay. My goal here is to wake up one day and be able to look at my kids and say, we live in Tennessee with that kind of peaceful attitude where if I take a vacation for a week, I'm not worried about what's about to run through the General Assembly or Congress. If I can be a small part of that in any way, that's fine with me, as long as we can wake up to that one day. And for today, that means that I want to get out there and I want to support Mary and make sure she's got everything she needs to make it through this race and win.
Well, let me just say, I think it's really commendable that you've taken this perspective. I think a lot of people would have just powered through and said, no, this seat's mine. I need to be the one out there, and for you to be doing this to set an example for your kids, I think it's really a powerful statement, and I really appreciate it. And I'm sure a lot of people will also. Have you spoken with Miriam about this at all?
No, I did not. I didn't. I mean, I spoke to her at some point. I want to say about a week or week and a half ago, and that was more just in terms of like, hey, what are you running on? Why are you running? Just so we could get to know each other a little bit. We had a great conversation, and both of us, I think, have respect for each other in that sense. But no, I didn't speak to her about me not running.
Gotcha. Well, I'll make sure to have her on here. Obviously, it's been pretty busy with the legislature, and Miriam's up there a lot. I mean, that's one thing that people should understand about Miriam. She's always up at the legislature. She has spoken out and testified on bills quite a bit. She's been walking the walk for a long time. Rise and Shine Tennessee is an organization that she founded, and we see them up there with a presence on the Hill often. So she hasn't just parachuted in and said, hey, I want to be in Congress. She's been walking the walk for a long time. And to me, that's a really important aspect of any candidacy. So really, appreciate you doing it. Appreciate anything else you want to let people know about this. And, having run myself, I know what a heavy lift it is. So this isn't something that you want to get into if there's a little voice in the back of your head saying, hey, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. You need to either be all in or all out. Is that part of what played into this?
Yeah, I think so, especially with looking at my daughter and son. I mean, I think that is that little voice in the back of your head, but also, people see candidates and they think that's the way to make a difference. I've gone to all the counties in this district recently, as well as many of them in my previous run. There are everyday people going to these county party meetings who are doing everything they can to get people elected and get changes in
Absolutely.
policy. And that's a huge thing. And that's a huge thing that I'd like to be a part of as well, to make sure that we have a lot of different groups out there. I want to, in the next couple of weeks, find ways that we can connect these groups, be a little more efficient in terms of how we're approaching elections, how we're approaching some of the policies. There's plenty of work that's already been done. That's great work. And I just want to add to it in any way I can. And so don't think that just because you're not running, that you're not having an impact. Every single person has an impact in any way, any conversation you have, anytime you show up at that ballot box.
Absolutely. And the county parties are in many ways like that's where the rubber meets the road. People often ask about the state party. Obviously, they cover a lot of ground, but really the county parties are, they know who's involved, they know where you should be, and any candidate should really focus on engaging the county parties. I'd be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to at least do a little recap of who she's running against and why you needed to run. Let's all remember who the bad guy is in this situation.
Yes.
Andy Ogles is somebody that has no shortage of headlines about him. I took me 30 seconds to pull these up. This is, he faces an ethics complaint, comparisons to George Santos. Our hashtag for him has been hashtag Tennessee Santos and hashtag Pinocchio Ogles, and also Andy Fogles if we ever have room for a third. He lied on his resume saying he was a I think economist, which he is not, law enforcement, which he was like a volunteer deputy, international sex crimes expert. Obviously these are Phil Williams headlines, and this is something that we actually knew about for a long time, but Phil, as always, when he gets a hold of something, he doesn't let it go. And then also one of my favorite aspects of this whole thing was he actually ran a 21,000 person Vanderbilt alumni group, but Andy did not go to Vanderbilt. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. And the list goes on. Andy, he recently said to a pro-Palestine activist who was asking him about dead Palestinian kids, his response was kill them all. He later said he was talking about Hamas, but in the context of the conversation, it was not that, and he knows it. And he says the leftist media is taking him out of context. No, that was the context, Andy, and we
Yeah.
should point it out. And then this is the transcripts thing. Wait, there was one more. Oh, of course, the Christmas card with the weaponry. That's another thing. So, and he was also racist towards Asians, which personally I take great offense to that. My wife, her family's Asian, and he did that very flippantly. So this is who we're dealing with. This is why somebody needed to run against him. I appreciate that you were willing to do it. And I also appreciate that, you're willing to get behind Miriam. What do you think about Andy, and what else did I miss?
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot you missed because just based on the 30-second search, right? You've come up with all of that. Look, he's not a serious guy. I mean, in many ways. I mean, at the end of the day, these are real problems. These are real things that people feel every single day. And he's not here to do anybody a service. He doesn't represent the majority of the district. He can't just remember he also walked into this seat with a lot of outside money from very conservative and extremist groups who were just hoping that they'd have a lackey for Trump. And they got it. And this is not the district. This is not what we need. And it's not someone who's going to sit there and say, let's just kill them all. I mean, that's a serious, serious thing, especially in the wake of what is happening in the last week, for instance, in Gaza with World Central Kitchen and whatnot. We have all these issues, and people fight for them and people go after them. And Miriam, for instance, has been out there, and I've been out there in my own way to figure out what can we do to make it better. This is not a man who's looking at that. He's just looking at how do I collect the paycheck? How do I get that title of representative? How do I stay in office just because it's, I don't know, good for him? Um, that's not what we need. We need selfless civil servants. And this is exactly why I wanted to run. And I'm so happy that Miriam is running as well.
Well, Kiran, I appreciate what you're doing here. Thanks for coming on here and talking to us about it. And we'll make sure to have Miriam on whenever she's ready. Probably after session, we'll probably do some more of those candidate interviews. But since this was breaking news and you wanted to come on here and talk about it here, wanted to make sure to get that done. So I appreciate it, man. And thanks for setting a good example for both of our kids.
No, I appreciate it. And the last thing I'll say is this.
Yeah.
Many of you have been really supportive of my candidacy in the last couple weeks, have reached out through various means. I hope I'm not letting you down, but I hope you also understand that we've got a great candidate in this race. And so please get behind her as well and support her.
Well said, sir. All right. See you soon.
All right.
That was Kiran Sreepada, my friend, my neighbor, good man, and appreciate the decision he's making. Miriam will have on here sometime, but if you follow the holler for any amount of time, you probably already know who she is. And she's a great candidate, like Kiran said, and folks should get behind her. Again, Miriam Ebel-Fazli is running. This is the headline from 2 days ago. And Kiran just came on here and announced that he is going to step aside, and basically folks should get behind her. Thanks for following. We'll see you next time.